Few people are aware that Monsanto has a long and arduous history started in 1901 by John Francis Queeny, a self-educated chemist, as a saccharine manufacturing company. Over the next 20 years, Monsanto transitioned into the leading manufacturer of sulfuric acid and other basic industrial chemicals, and into plastics and synthetic fabrics by 1940. During this time, Monsanto purchased the Swan Chemical Company, who had developed polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, and began manufacturing the world's supply of PCBs at a Monsanto plant in East St. Louis, Illinois. PCBs were widely used as lubricants, hydraulic fluids, cutting oils, waterproof coatings, and liquid sealants until 1976, when PCBs were banned in the U.S. However, evidence of the toxic effects of the PCBs appeared as early as the 1930s, and extensive research was done throughout the 60s and 70s. The effects still persist worldwide, but the city that continues to reap the worst effects of the PCBs is East St. Louis, with some of the sickest children in America and the highest rate of fetal deaths and immature births in the state, and the third highest in the U.S. For my presentation, I would like for at least one audience member to be more aware of the food they are purchasing and the information being fed to consumers. From mega corporations and government officials, in order to accomplish this, I will talk about backroom deals being made with Monsanto, explain in greater detail the level of presidential backing given to the mega corporation and the revolving door effect on consumers. The relationship between Monsanto and government officials are a conflict of interest because it provides the company with an unfair political advantage and does not hold the company accountable for their actions nor their products. Although the people of East St. Louis continue to face the effects of the chemical exposure almost 40 years after the ban on PCBs, a nearby town of Times Beach, Missouri, was found to be so contaminated with dioxin that the U.S. government ordered the town to be evacuated in 1982. Several people in the town hired a local contractor to spray the dirt roads with waste oil in an effort to keep the dust down. That same contractor was hired by a local chemical company to pump out their dioxin-contaminated sludge tanks. After hundreds of animals died in an indoor arena that had been sprayed with the oil, an investigation followed that traced the deaths to the dioxin. Although Monsanto has consistently denied any connection to the Times Beach incident, laboratory reports were uncovered that documented the presence of a large concentration of PCBs manufactured by Monsanto in the contaminated soil samples from the town. The cover-up reached the highest levels in the Reagan administration in Washington, where the nation's environmental agencies became notorious for officials' repeated backroom deals with industry officials, in which favored companies were promised lax enforcement and reduced fines. Reagan's appointed administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Ann Buford, was forced to resign after 2 years in office. Buford's special assistant, Rita Lavelle, was jailed for perjury and obstruction of justice and cited for shredding documents. In one famous incident, Reagan's administrators ordered Buford to withhold documents on the Times Beach incident and other contaminated sites, citing executive privilege. An investigative reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper identified Monsanto as one of the companies whose executives frequently hosted luncheons and dinner meetings with Lavelle. The history of cover-ups and the revolving door between Monsanto and the government only started with the Reagan administration and has continued through our current U.S. President, Barack Obama. In the mid-1980s, Monsanto began experimenting with genetically modified food and planting cells. Around the same time, Mitt Romney had graduated from Harvard University and started working at the Bain Company. Bain Company is a consulting firm whose largest client is none other than Monsanto. Romney quickly became friends with Monsanto's CEO at the time, John Hanley, who later gave Romney $1 million to start 2 side companies. In 1992, President George H.W. Bush announced that genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, were substantially equivalent to non-GMO foods, which opened the floodgates to GMO foods appearing in supermarkets across the country. In 1997, Mickey Cantor, an architect of Bill Clinton's 1992 election campaign and the U.S. Trade Representative during Clinton's first term, was elected a seat on Monsanto's board of directors. Marcia Hale, formerly the personal assistant to the president, served as Monsanto's public affairs officer in Britain. Vice President Al Gore was known for his writings and speeches on the environment, has also been a vocal supporter of biotechnology during his days in the U.S. Senate. Our current U.S. president has the same relationship ties to Monsanto, creating the revolving door effect for yet another presidential term. President Obama has appointed Roger Beachy, Michael Taylor, Ramona Romero, and Thomas Wilsack to a regulatory agency. This has given Monsanto the confidence to continue their suspicious practices and allowed the revolving door to continue turning. Roger Beachy, Ramona Romero, Clarence Thomas, Elena Kagan, Margaret Miller, and Islam Siddiqui were all former Monsanto employees that have moved into strategic positions in other industries. Beachy and Romero accepted positions at the USDA as the director and council member, respectively. Thomas and Kagan moved into positions in the Supreme Court. Miller was given a position at the FDA as branch chair, and Siddiqui became the U.S. Agricultural Trade Representative. This is just a sample of the web woven between Monsanto and key governmental departments. However, the most famous revolving door case is the Deputy Commissioner of Foods for the FDA, Michael Taylor. Taylor started at the FDA in 1978 as an attorney. He left the FDA in 1981 for the same position at Monsanto. In 1991, Taylor left Monsanto to return to the FDA as the Deputy Commissioner for Policy. He then left the FDA in 1998 to become Monsanto's VP for Public Policy. In 2009, Taylor yet again accepted a position of Senior Advisor to the FDA Commissioner and has been the Deputy Commissioner for Food at the FDA since 2010. But how long will Taylor decide to actually stay at the FDA? All of these people are perfect for Monsanto to create ties with key players in crucial departments, but in doing so creates a conflict of interest. The regulating industries should be completely independent of the industries they are reviewing, and the only way to make any difference and to change the unscrupulous practices is to be informed of what is going on and become responsible consumers. I hope that by hearing about the backroom deals, presidential backings, and the revolving door within Monsanto, it will make you more cognizant of the food you are purchasing and rethink the information you receive about this company.